Commander Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the ESV Horizon and watched the stars through the main screen. The ship moved through space faster than light itself, but everything felt slow and quiet. 500 years had passed since humans last spoke to aliens, and Jake wondered if they would remember Earth at all. Year was 2547, and Earth had finally decided to send ships beyond the solar system again. The Horizon was the first human vessel to travel to other stars since the Great. Silence began. Jake's orders were simple. Watch and learn, but do not make contact with any alien species. They might find Lieutenant Amy Walsh turned from her console with wide eyes. "Commander, we are picking up massive energy readings from the Kepler system," she said. "Something big is happening there." Jake moved to her station and looked at the data. The numbers made no sense. Energy signatures that large could power entire planets. "How far are we from those readings?" he asked. 3 hours at current speed." Amy replied. "Should we investigate?" Jake thought about his orders. Earth's leaders had been very clear about avoiding contact. Humans had been hurt badly in their last war with aliens and needed time to heal. But curiosity was part of human nature, and Jake could not ignore what might be the biggest space battle in history. "Change course," he ordered. "Take us there, but keep us hidden." The Horizon shifted direction and moved toward the energy signatures. As they got closer, Jake could see the truth through the ship's sensors. 2 massive fleets were fighting in space near a small planet. One fleet had ships that looked familiar from old Earth records. These were coalition vessels belonging to species that humans had known centuries ago. The other fleet was different. Their ships looked like they were made of crystal and light. They moved in ways that seemed impossible, appearing and disappearing like ghosts. Every time they fired their weapons, coalition ships exploded into nothing. "My God," whispered Dr. Carl. Green from the science station. "The coalition is losing badly. Those crystal ships are destroying everything." Jake watched as a coalition dreadnought the size of a small city burst into flames. Escape pods scattered like seeds in the wind, but many were being destroyed by the crystal ships. Thousands of alien lives were ending right in front of his eyes. "Commander," called out Lieutenant Tony Ross from communications. "We are receiving a distress signal from the coalition flagship." The main screen flickered and showed the bridge of an alien warship. Smoke filled the air and sparks flew from damaged equipment. A tall creature with blue skin and 4 arms stood. In the center, Jake recognized the species from old Earth files. This was a Vron officer of high rank. "This is Admiral Kex Than of the Coalition Defense Fleet," the alien said in heavily accented English. "Our forces are being destroyed by an unknown enemy. Any ship receiving this message, please assist us. We are about to lose everything." Jake felt his heart racing. The Coalition fleet was being wiped out, and they were asking for help. His orders said to observe only, but watching people die without helping felt wrong. "Every human instinct told him to act, sir," Amy said quietly. Earth's orders were very specific. No contact means no contact. Jake knew she was right, but he also knew what his conscience demanded. He had joined Earth's space service to protect innocent life, not to watch it be destroyed. The crystal ships were methodically hunting down escape pods now, killing survivors who posed no threat. "Commander, what are your orders?" asked Lieutenant Ross. Jake looked at his crew and saw the same conflict in their eyes. They all knew what Earth wanted them to do, but they also knew what was right. The Coalition had never been Earth's enemy. In fact, they had tried to help humans during the Great War 5 centuries ago. Another Coalition ship exploded on the screen. Admiral Kex Than's flagship was surrounded now and taking heavy damage. In minutes, it would be destroyed, and thousands more would die. Jake made his choice. "Open a channel to the Coalition flagship." "Sir, are you sure?" Amy asked. Do it, Jake replied. Communication channel opened, and Jake found himself looking at Admiral Kexthan's surprised face. The alien had probably given up hope of rescue. This is Commander Jake Morrison of the Earth space vessel Horizon, he said clearly. We are moving. To assist your forces. The effect was immediate. Admiral Kexthan's 4 eyes went wide with shock. Behind him, other aliens stopped what they were doing and stared at the screen. For a moment, even the sounds of battle seemed to fade. Humans, Admiral Kexthan whispered. You have returned. Jake did not have time to explain 5 centuries of silence. The crystal ships were closing in, and the coalition had only minutes left. We need to coordinate our attack, he said. Tell your ships to follow our lead. The Horizon dropped out of stealth mode and activated its weapons. The ship was small compared to the massive coalition vessels, but it radiated power that made space itself seem to bend around it. 500 years of human innovation and advancement were about to be revealed to the galaxy as the first human weapon fired in half. A millennium Jake realized that Earth's long silence was finally over. Whatever happened next, the galaxy would know that humanity had returned, and they were not the same species that had left so long ago. The crystal ships turned toward the Horizon with obvious interest. They had been hunting coalition forces with ease, but now they faced something new. Something that had been quiet for 5 centuries and had used every one of those years to become stronger. Battle for the future of the galaxy was about to begin. News traveled fast across the galaxy, and within hours, every major world knew the truth. Humans had returned to space, and they had saved a coalition fleet from total destruction. On the capital world of Nexus Prime Chancellor Vex Mora, called an Scifistories, emergency meeting of all species leaders. The Chancellor was an Altarian, with silver skin and 3 eyes that could see across multiple light spectrums. She had studied human history and remembered the stories her grandmother told about the primitive warriors who fought with nuclear weapons and chemical rockets. Most species assumed humans had destroyed themselves long ago. The report must be wrong, said General Nexvior of the Craxi Empire. Humans barely had faster-than-light travel when they vanished. How could they defeat the crystal ships that have been destroying our fleets for 3 years? Chancellor Vex Mora pulled up the battle recordings on the main screen. The footage showed a single human ship moving with impossible speed and precision. Its weapons cut through crystal ship defenses like they were made of paper. The way it moved defied every known law of physics. The energy readings don't lie, she said. That human vessel generated more power than our entire home fleet. Something happened to them during their isolation. Something that made them far more advanced than we ever imagined. Meanwhile, in space near the battle zone, Captain Lisa Bennett commanded the ESV Defiance as it searched for coalition survivors. Her ship was larger than the Horizon, but moved with the same fluid grace. The crew worked with efficiency that seemed almost supernatural as they located and rescued escape pods scattered across light years DR. Alex Carter stood in the medical bay treating injured aliens with equipment that amazed even experienced coalition doctors. Wounds that should have taken weeks to heal were closing in hours. Radiation poisoning that meant certain death was being cured with simple injections. How is this possible? Asked Medic Telon, a reptilian saurian who had served in Coalition Medical Corps for 40 years. Your technology surpasses anything we have ever seen. Alex smiled as he worked on a badly injured Vron pilot. We had 500 years to think about problems, he said. When you have that much time, you find solutions that others miss. The rescued aliens were taken to a secure section of the ship where they could recover safely. As word spread among them that humans had returned, the reactions were mixed. Some remembered humans as allies, while others recalled the devastation of the Terran Zephyrian. War Commander Danny Foster led a team exploring the wreckage of crystal ships destroyed in the battle. The alien technology was unlike anything in Coalition databases. The ships seemed to be made of living crystal that could phase in and out of normal space at will. "These aren't just advanced," Danny reported to Captain Bennett. "They're operating on completely different principles. It's like they exist in multiple dimensions at the same time." Dr. Carter joined the investigation and made a disturbing discovery. The crystal ships contained no crew compartments or life support systems. Whatever controlled them was not biological in any sense that Coalition science understood. "Captain," he called over the communicator, "I don't think these ships have pilots. They might be completely autonomous or controlled from somewhere else entirely." Admiral Susan Hayes arrived with the main human fleet 12 hours after the first battle ended. Her ships were smaller than Coalition dreadnoughts, but their power signatures made veteran alien officers nervous. Each human vessel radiated energy that suggested weapons and defenses beyond current understanding. Admiral's flagship ESV New Earth approached the Coalition survivors with deliberate slowness. Hayes understood that her appearance would cause political shock waves across the galaxy and wanted to control the situation. "Carefully, Coalition vessels, this is Admiral Hayes of the Earth Defense Force," she broadcast on all frequencies. "We offer medical assistance and safe passage to any who need it. We also request permission to speak with your senior commanders about the enemy you have been fighting." Admiral Kex then responded immediately from his damaged flagship. "Admiral Hayes, your arrival is a miracle we had not dared hope for. The enemy calls themselves the Void Heralds, and they have consumed 60 of our worlds in 3 years. Our combined fleets cannot match their technology." Hayes studied the battle data her ships had collected during the engagement. The Void Heralds fought with tactics that suggested high intelligence and long-term planning. They were not random raiders, but organized invaders with specific goals. "Admiral Kex, then we need to know everything about these Void Heralds," she said. "Their origins, their methods, and most importantly, their objectives. Earth has been isolated for 5 centuries, but we remember our friends." The Coalition commanders gathered aboard the New Earth for the first human-alien diplomatic meeting in half a millennium. The ship's interior amazed them with its clean lines and technology that seemed to respond to thought as much as touch DR. Carter served as translator using devices that could convert any language in real time. The aliens were fascinated by human advances in linguistics and communication theory. Some concepts had no equivalent in their languages. "The Void Heralds appeared 3 years ago from empty space," Admiral Kex then explained. "They attack without warning, and their ships can appear anywhere without using known jump points. After destroying our defenses, they use massive machines to break down planets into raw materials." Hayes listened carefully as the Coalition officers described battle after battle where their forces were outmatched and outmaneuvered. The Void Heralds seemed to know Coalition tactics better than the Coalition knew them themselves. "Do they communicate?" Hayes asked. "Have they made any demands or explained their actions?" "Never," replied General Vaxuma of the Centauri Defense League. "They ignore all attempts at contact and show no interest in negotiation. They simply arrive, destroy everything, and harvest what remains." Hayes exchanged glances with her staff officers. The pattern suggested something more complex than simple invasion. Species that could travel between dimensions usually had reasons beyond conquest for their actions. "With your permission," Hayes said, "we would like to establish a joint command center to coordinate our response. Humanity has been away from galactic affairs for too long, but we remember our obligations to defend innocent life." The Coalition leaders agreed immediately. They had lost 60 worlds and hundreds of ships, fighting an enemy they could not understand or effectively resist. Human technology had already proven superior to Void Herald defenses in the first engagement. As the meeting ended, Hayes realized that humanity's return to the galaxy would change everything. Earth's long isolation had ended not with exploration or trade, but war against an enemy that threatened all life in known space. The Void Heralds had consumed worlds for 3 years without facing serious resistance. Now they would discover what humanity had become during 5 centuries of silence and preparation. The galaxy was about to learn that some species become more dangerous when they have time to think. Colonel Ryan Parker sat in the observation deck of the ESV New Earth and watched alien ships move through space around them. At 93 years old, he was one of the few humans who remembered life before the Great Silence. His weathered hands held a datapad containing records that most people preferred to forget. "Tell me about the early years," Admiral Haas said as she joined him. "The coalition leaders need to understand why we withdrew from galactic society." Ryan's eyes grew distant as he recalled memories from 9 decades past. "The war with the Zephyrians lasted 6 years," he began. "When it ended, Earth was a graveyard. 3 billion people dead, and most of our cities turned to glass. The aliens who tried to help us couldn't understand why we fought so hard for what seemed like worthless rock." Hayes had read the official reports, but wanted to hear the truth from someone who lived through it. The Terran-Zephyrian War was taught in schools as a tragedy, but the real story was more complex and painful. "The Zephyrians weren't evil," Ryan continued. "They needed water for their dying homeworld, and Earth had oceans full of it. From their perspective, taking 90% of our water was a fair trade for advanced technology. They couldn't comprehend why we would fight to keep something we had so much of." The old soldier paused and looked out at the coalition ships. Many of those species had offered help during the war, but humans had refused almost all assistance. Earth's leaders feared that accepting alien aid would make humanity dependent on others. "After the war ended, we faced a choice," Ryan said. "We could rebuild the same way and remain junior partners in a galaxy full of older species, or we could try something different." Dr. Elena Rodriguez convinced the Earth Council to choose isolation. Admiral Hayes knew that name from history books. Dr. Rodriguez had been Earth's greatest scientist and the architect of humanity's transformation during the Silence Years. Her theories about consciousness and quantum mechanics had seemed impossible at the time. "What was the great project really about?" Hayes asked. Ryan smiled sadly. Elena believed that consciousness was the key to everything. Not just human consciousness, but quantum consciousness at the subatomic level. She thought that if humans could learn to think the way atoms and particles behave, we could transcend the limitations of normal matter. Meanwhile, in the present, Captain Danny Foster led a scouting mission deep into Void Herald territory. His ship, the ESV Explorer, moved through space that had once contained 3 inhabited star systems. Now only empty void remained where billions of people had lived. "Captain, we are detecting structure ahead," reported Lieutenant Gary White from the sensor station. "It's massive and appears to be artificial." Danny ordered the ship to approach carefully. What they found challenged everything the Coalition had told them about Void Herald tactics. Instead of a military installation, they discovered something that looked like a construction site spanning several light years. The structure was beautiful in an alien way. Crystalline frameworks stretched between points of intense energy, while smaller constructs moved with purpose through the geometric patterns. It looked less like a weapon and more like art on an impossible scale. "Danny, this is incredible," came Dr. Carter's voice from the science lab. "I'm reading energy patterns that suggest they're building something that exists in multiple dimensions simultaneously. This isn't destruction, it's creation." The revelation forced Danny to reconsider everything they thought they knew about the Void Heralds. The Coalition had described them as mindless destroyers, but the evidence suggested intelligence and purpose. "Beyond simple conquest. Sir, we are being scanned," Lieutenant White reported. "Multiple sources and their using methods our sensors can't fully analyze." Danny felt the ship shudder as something immense focused its attention on them. Through the main screen, he could see crystalline constructs turning toward their position. Like flowers following the sun, this is Captain Foster of the Earth Vessel Explorer. He broadcast on all frequencies. We come seeking understanding, not conflict. The response came not through their communication systems, but directly into their minds. Images and concepts flooded their consciousness, showing the truth about the Void Heralds. They were not invaders from another galaxy, but refugees from another dimension entirely DR. Carter struggled to process the mental contact. "Captain, they're not trying to hurt us," he gasped. "They're trying to explain. Their dimension is collapsing, and they need matter from our reality to build an escape vessel." The mental images showed a dying universe where the fundamental forces were breaking down. Entire galaxies were dissolving as the laws of physics failed. The beings humans called Void Heralds were actually artists and philosophers trying to save their civilization. "They call themselves the Starlight Seekers," Dr. Carter continued. "The devices they use to break down planets aren't weapons, but construction tools. They're converting matter into exotic materials that can exist between dimensions." Danny realized that the Coalition had been fighting a war against refugees who were trying to build an ark. The Starlight Seekers needed vast amounts of matter to create a vessel that could carry their entire species to a stable dimension. "But they're still destroying inhabited worlds," Lieutenant White pointed out. "Whatever their reasons, they're committing genocide." The mental contact intensified and showed them images of previous attempts at communication. The Starlight Seekers had tried to explain their situation to Coalition species, but the translation of concepts across dimensional barriers had failed. Both sides had resorted to violence when understanding proved impossible. Danny faced a choice that would affect the future of multiple species. The Coalition wanted to destroy the Starlight Seekers completely, while the refugees needed to continue harvesting matter or watch their entire civilization die. Neither side seemed willing to compromise. "Send a message to Admiral Hayes," he ordered. "Tell her we found the truth about our enemy, and it's more complicated than anyone imagined. Also tell her we need Dr. Rodriguez's old research files on consciousness translation." Back on the New Earth, Colonel Parker continued his story about humanity's transformation. Elena's breakthrough came in 2087 when she discovered how to link human consciousness with quantum computers, he said. "Suddenly, our minds could process information at subatomic speeds. The development had been kept secret, even from most humans. Only a small group of scientists and military officers knew that Earth's population was slowly being enhanced with quantum consciousness implants. We didn't just rebuild our technology," Parker explained. "We rebuilt ourselves. Every human born after 2100 can think at quantum levels and share thoughts across any distance instantly. We became something new." Admiral Hayes understood now why human ships moved with such precision and why their crews seemed to anticipate each other's actions. They weren't just using advanced technology. They were thinking as a collective consciousness while maintaining individual personalities. Long silence had not been about healing from war, but about evolution. Humanity had spent 5 centuries becoming something that could operate on the same level as forces that shaped reality itself. Now they faced their first test against beings from another dimension entirely. Galaxy was about to discover that some species use isolation not to hide, but to transform themselves into something capable of solving problems that others cannot even comprehend. Commander Kevin Brooks sat in the cockpit of his fighter craft as it prepared to launch from the ESV New Earth. The Tau Ceti system stretched out before him, filled with starlight, seeker constructs that defied every known law of physics. This would be the first real test of human quantum consciousness in combat. "All pilots, link your minds to the network," Kevin commanded through the squadron communication system. "Remember, we're not just flying ships today. We are becoming them." 12. Human fighters launched simultaneously and immediately began moving in patterns that seemed impossible. Each pilot's consciousness merged with their ship's quantum computer, creating a hybrid intelligence that could think at the speed of light itself. Lieutenant Steve Miller felt his awareness expand as his mind connected with his fighter's systems. The ship stopped being a machine he controlled and became an extension of his body. He could feel every photon that touched the hull and sense gravitational changes from distant stars. The Starlight Seekers responded to the human approach by activating their phase-shifting defenses. Their crystalline ships began flickering in and out of normal space, making them impossible to target with conventional weapons. "Kevin, they're using dimensional displacement," reported pilot Amy Clark over the quantum link. "Our sensors can't lock onto them." Kevin smiled as his enhanced consciousness processed the problem at subatomic levels. "We don't need sensors," he replied. "Link deeper with the network and feel where they're going to be." The human pilots pushed their quantum consciousness to its limits, and suddenly they could perceive probability cascades across multiple dimensions. The Starlight Seekers weren't randomly phasing. They were following mathematical patterns that human minds could now predict. First human weapons fired in 3 years struck their targets with perfect precision. Starlight Seeker ships that had seemed untouchable began taking damage as human fighters anticipated their movements before they made them. Meanwhile, Captain Nicole Davis commanded the ESV Unity as it moved to protect coalition evacuation ships fleeing the battle zone. Her vessel was one of the new generation human warships that could function as both individual units and components of a larger collective intelligence. "Captain, the Starlight Seekers are surrounding the evacuation fleet," reported Lieutenant Tony Ross from the tactical station. "Coalition ships don't have the speed to escape." Nicole closed her eyes and extended her consciousness across the quantum network. Instantly, she could perceive the thoughts and intentions of every human crew member. In the battle zone, the Unity stopped being a single ship and became part of something larger. "All human vessels link consciousness networks," she ordered. "We're going to demonstrate what 500 years of evolution accomplished." The effect was immediate and stunning. 12 human ships began moving as a single organism, with dozens of minds thinking as one. They anticipated each other's actions, not through communication, but through shared consciousness that operated faster than the speed of light. Dr. Nathan Green watched from the science station as the human fleet performed maneuvers that broke every rule of space combat. Ships changed direction without apparent acceleration and fired weapons that curved through space to hit targets behind. "Cover, my God," he whispered. "We're not just using quantum consciousness for thinking. We're using it to manipulate space-time itself." The Starlight Seekers found themselves facing an enemy that thought faster and more efficiently than they did. Their quantum entanglement communication seemed slow compared to human consciousness networks that shared information instantly across any distance. Commander Brooks led his fighter squadron through a formation that existed in 7 dimensions. Simultaneously, the pilots' enhanced minds could perceive and navigate spaces that normal consciousness couldn't even comprehend. "Kevin, we've got multiple Starlight Seeker vessels converging on our position," warned pilot Gary White. "They're trying to box us in." Brooks felt the solution form in his quantum-enhanced awareness. "Everyone drop into dimensional phase," he commanded. "Follow my consciousness signature." The human fighters vanished from normal space and reappeared behind the Starlight Seeker formation. For the first time in 3 years, an enemy had successfully used dimensional manipulation against the refugees from a dying universe. The Starlight Seekers began retreating, which surprised both human and coalition forces. These beings had never withdrawn from battle before, and their tactical retreat suggested they recognized a superior opponent. A Unity Captain Davis coordinated the rescue of thousands of coalition civilians while maintaining the quantum consciousness link with other human vessels. Her mind processed information from multiple sources, simultaneously, while her personality remained completely intact. "Dr. Green," she called, without turning from her command station. "Are you monitoring the Starlight Seeker communication networks, Nathan?" Nodded as he worked with equipment that translated quantum entanglement patterns into concepts human minds could understand. "They're confused and frightened," he reported. "They've never encountered beings who can think at their level." The translation revealed something significant about Starlight Seeker psychology. These beings had become used to overwhelming less advanced species with superior technology and tactics. Meeting humans who could match their dimensional abilities forced them to reconsider their entire approach. "Captain, I'm detecting a change in their construction patterns," Dr. Green continued. "They're modifying their arc design to include defensive systems. I think they're preparing for a longer conflict." Nicole felt sadness flow through the quantum consciousness network as human minds processed this information. The Starlight Seekers were refugees trying to save their civilization, but they were also destroying inhabited worlds to achieve that goal. "Send a message to Admiral Hayes," Nicole ordered. "Tell her we need to try direct communication with them. Fighting them proves we can match their abilities, but it doesn't solve the real problem." The battle ended with human forces in complete control of the Tau Ceti system. Coalition evacuation ships escaped safely, while Starlight Seeker constructs retreated to deeper space. For the first time in 3 years, the refugees had been forced to abandon. A harvesting operation commander, Brooks, landed his fighter and disconnected from the quantum consciousness network. The transition back to individual thinking always felt strange after sharing awareness with dozens of other minds. "How do you feel?" asked Dr. Green as Kevin walked through the Unity's corridors. Kevin considered the question carefully. "Different," he replied. "Every time we link consciousness networks, we become more than we were before. I can feel my individual personality changing and growing." This was the secret that humanity had discovered during their 5 centuries of silence. Quantum consciousness didn't just allow faster thinking or better coordination. It allowed genuine evolution of the mind itself into something that could perceive and manipulate reality at more fundamental levels. Admiral Hayes reviewed the battle reports from her flagship and realized that humanity now faced a choice. They had proven they could fight the Starlight Seekers as equals, but that might not be enough. The refugees needed matter to build their ark and would eventually resume harvesting. "Inhabited worlds, get me a direct quantum link to the Starlight Seeker leadership," she ordered. "It's time we had a real conversation about what they need and what we're willing to do to help them get it." The age of misunderstanding was ending, but the age of difficult choices was just beginning. Humanity had evolved into something capable of matching beings from another dimension, but evolution was meaningless without wisdom to guide it properly. Admiral Patricia Stone stood in the main conference room of the ESV New Earth and faced the most difficult decision in human history. Representatives from every coalition species sat around the table demanding that humanity share its quantum consciousness technology to wipe out the Starlight Seekers completely. "Admiral Stone," said Chancellor Vex Mora of the Altarian Republic, "your people have proven they can defeat this enemy. We need your technology to finish them once and for all." Patricia felt the weight of expectation from dozens of alien leaders who had lost worlds and loved ones too. Starlight Seeker harvesting operations. Their desire for revenge was understandable, but the situation was more complex than they realized. "Chancellor, the Starlight Seekers aren't evil conquerors," Patricia replied. "They're refugees whose entire dimension is collapsing. They need matter from our reality to build an escape vessel, or their entire civilization will die." General Nex Vor of the Craxi Empire slammed his 4 fists on the table. "They have destroyed 60 of our worlds and killed billions of our people," he roared. "We don't care about their motivations. We want them stopped." The coalition leaders had gathered on the planet Haven's Gate, which housed refugees from 17 consumed worlds. Outside the conference center, thousands of displaced aliens demanded justice for their destroyed homes and dead families. Amy Clark monitored the quantum consciousness network as human leaders shared thoughts and emotions across interstellar distances. The collective mind of humanity was struggling with the moral implications of their newfound power. "Admiral," she reported quietly, "I'm detecting increasing stress in the network. Our people are feeling the weight of so many species depending on us for salvation." Meanwhile, Captain Steve Miller commanded a diplomatic mission to the primary Starlight Seeker construction site in the Vega system. His ship, the ESV Messenger, moved through a structure that spanned several light years and defied every human understanding of engineering. "Captain, this is incredible," reported Dr. Carl Johnson from the science station. "They're not just building an ark, they're creating an entire universe in miniature. The energy requirements must be astronomical." Steve watched through the main screen as crystalline constructs moved with purpose through geometric patterns that hurt to look at. The Starlight Seekers were building something that would exist in 17 dimensions simultaneously. "Dr. Johnson, can you establish communication with them?" Steve asked. Carl nodded and activated the quantum consciousness translation system that humanity had developed specifically for this mission. The device could convert human thoughts into the quantum entanglement patterns that Starlight Seekers used for communication. The response came as a flood of images and concepts that nearly overwhelmed the human crew. The Starlight Seekers showed them the truth about their dying dimension, where stars were going out and the fundamental forces of physics were breaking down. "Captain, they're showing us their homeworld," Dr. Johnson gasped. "It's beautiful, but everything is falling apart. Entire galaxies are dissolving as space-time itself unravels." The mental contact revealed that the Starlight Seekers weren't just artists and philosophers, but parents and children facing extinction. They needed 17 galaxies worth of matter to create a stable pocket dimension that could house their species permanently. "They're offering us something," Steve said as new images filled his mind. "Knowledge of dimensional travel that could let humanity explore realities beyond this one. But they need our help to finish their arc." The offer split both human and coalition leadership. Some wanted to accept the partnership, while others demanded complete surrender from the refugees. The quantum consciousness network buzzed with conflicting emotions and opinions on Haven's Gate. Admiral Stone met with General Marcus Red, who commanded the Joint Coalition Human Forces in the region. The general had served with distinction in dozens of campaigns, but nothing had prepared him for the current crisis. "General, what's the mood among coalition forces?" Patricia asked. Marcus looked tired as he reviewed reports from across the sector. "Mixed," he replied. "The military commanders want revenge, but the scientists are fascinated by Starlight Seeker technology. The politicians just want guarantees that their worlds won't be harvested." The refugee camps outside their meeting location erupted in protests as news of potential negotiations spread. Displaced aliens who had lost everything demanded that the Starlight Seekers be destroyed regardless of the consequences. "Admiral, we have another problem," Marcus continued. "Some coalition species are threatening to attack Starlight Seeker sites with or without human support. If we don't give them satisfaction, they might start their own war." Patricia realized that humanity now held the balance of power for the entire galaxy. Their quantum consciousness technology made them superior to both coalition forces and Starlight Seeker defenses. Whatever they decided would determine the fate of multiple civilizations. Dr. Clark made a breakthrough in dimensional physics while studying Starlight Seeker construction techniques. Her discovery offered a third option that nobody had considered. "Before, Admiral, I think I've found a solution," she announced during an emergency meeting. "Instead of helping them harvest matter or destroying them completely, we could teach them to extract energy from quantum foam." The proposal was revolutionary. Quantum foam was the sea of virtual particles that existed in empty space between dimensions. It contained unlimited energy, but required sophisticated technology to harvest safely. Dr. Clark, how long would it take them to build their ark using quantum foam extraction? Patricia asked Amy. Ran calculations through the quantum consciousness network and felt dozens of human minds working on the problem simultaneously. Approximately 3,000 years instead of 50, she replied. But they wouldn't need to harvest any inhabited worlds. The proposal reached Starlight Seeker leadership through quantum entanglement communication. Their response was immediate and divided. Some refugees wanted to accept the slower but peaceful option, while others demanded the right to continue harvesting coalition reactions were equally mixed. Species that had lost worlds wanted guarantees that the Starlight Seekers would never harvest matter from their space again. Others worried that 3,000 years was too long, and the refugees might resume destructive tactics. The hardline faction among the Starlight Seekers is growing stronger, reported Captain Miller from the Vega construction site. They're saying that humanity is trying to trick them into abandoning their only chance for survival. Patricia felt the quantum consciousness network reflecting the anxiety of her entire species. Humans had evolved beyond their old limitations, but they still struggled with the burden of making choices that affected billions of lives. Send messages to both Coalition and Starlight Seeker leadership, she ordered. Tell them we're calling a galaxy-wide conference to settle this permanently. Either we find a solution that everyone can accept, or we let the war continue until only one side survives. The announcement sent shockwaves across known space. Never before had so many different species gathered to negotiate the fate of entire civilizations. A conference would take place at a neutral location where humanity's quantum consciousness could serve as translation between groups that had been trying to kill each other for 3 years, Admiral. Stone knew that the conference might be humanity's greatest achievement or their most catastrophic failure. 500 years of evolution had given them the power to enforce any solution. They chose, but wisdom meant finding one that all sides could live with, the weight of choice pressed down on every human mind, connected to the quantum consciousness network. They had become something greater than their ancestors, but greatness meant nothing without the courage to use it wisely. Captain Tony Ross commanded the security detail at Conference Station Alpha, a massive structure built jointly by humans and Starlight Seekers in the neutral space between galaxies. Representatives from every major civilization had gathered to decide the fate of reality itself. The station existed in 7 dimensions simultaneously and required quantum consciousness to navigate properly. Coalition delegates needed human escorts to move through sections that their minds couldn't perceive, a la Starlight Seeker entities appeared as shifting patterns of light and crystalline geometry. Captain, we have a problem, reported Lieutenant Gary White from the Security Center. Coalition hardliners are planning to sabotage the talks. They want to force a military solution. Tony felt concern ripple through the quantum consciousness network as thousands of human minds processed the threat. The conference represented the only chance for peaceful resolution, but extremists on all sides wanted to continue fighting. Deploy additional security teams, Tony ordered, and monitor all communication channels. If anyone tries to disrupt these talks, they'll answer to humanity. In the main conference chamber, Commander Julia Harris supervised the first successful test of quantum foam extraction technology. The demonstration was crucial to proving that Starlight Seekers could save their civilization without destroying others. The process is working perfectly, she announced, as exotic energy flowed through crystalline converters. We're extracting enough power to fuel a small star from just 1 cubic meter of empty space. Coalition delegates watched in amazement as the demonstration continued. The technology seemed impossible, but the energy readings were undeniable. Quantum foam extraction could provide unlimited power without consuming any existing matter. Chancellor Vex Mora studied the data carefully. How long would it take to extract enough energy to complete the Starlight Seeker arc? SCASKEDR. Carl Johnson consulted with both human scientists and Starlight Seeker entities through quantum consciousness translation. Approximate 3,000 years, he replied. But the process could be accelerated by building multiple extraction facilities. The timeline sparked heated debate among coalition representatives. Some species wanted faster results, while others worried about the long-term implications of giving refugees access to unlimited energy general. Nexvar rose from his seat with obvious anger. 3,000 years is too long, he declared. In that time they could change their minds and resume harvesting our worlds. We need guarantees they can never threaten us again. The Starlight Seeker entity known as Harmony Through Starfall responded with patterns of light that the translation system converted into concepts. Your fears are understandable, but we offer something in return for patience. Knowledge of dimensional travel that will let all species explore realities beyond this one. The offer created new divisions among coalition leadership. Advanced species saw the potential for expansion into parallel universes, while others worried about the risks of dimensional manipulation. The proposal has merit, said Dr. Elena Rodriguez, now 97 years old and serving as humanity's chief negotiator. But it requires trust between species that have been trying to kill each other for 3 years. Elena had emerged from retirement to help design the conference protocols. Her theories about quantum consciousness made her the only human who could communicate equally well with both coalition representatives and Starlight Seeker entities. We propose a permanent alliance, she continued. The Starlight Seekers would remain in this galaxy and help defend it against future threats. Their dimensional technology combined with human quantum consciousness and coalition resources would create an unbeatable defense network. The proposal was unprecedented in galactic history. Most species had never formed lasting alliances across such different levels of technology and consciousness. Captain Steve Miller monitored communications from across the galaxy as news of the alliance proposal spread. Public reaction was mixed, with some worlds celebrating while others prepared for continued warfare. Dr. Rodriguez were receiving reports of coalition fleet movements, he announced. Some species are preparing for military action if the talks fail. Elena felt the weight of history pressing down her shoulders. The conference would succeed or fail based on her ability to convince dozens of different species to trust each other with their survival. Send a message to all coalition fleets, she ordered. Tell them that humanity will enforce whatever agreement emerges from these talks. We have the power to stop any species that chooses war over peace. The threat was not idle. Human quantum consciousness technology made their forces superior to any combination of coalition or Starlight Seeker military units. They could impose peace by force if necessary. But that's not the solution we want, Elena continued. We want willing cooperation between species that choose to work together for mutual benefit. The breakthrough came when Dr. Amy Clark proposed a specific implementation plan for the alliance. Instead of vague promises, the agreement would include detailed protocols for technology sharing, defense coordination, and dispute resolution. Each species would contribute their unique capabilities, Amy explained. Coalition worlds would provide resources and population. Starlight Seekers would share dimensional technology, and humans would serve as coordinators through quantum consciousness networks. The plan appealed to practical-minded delegates who wanted concrete benefits rather than abstract ideals. Species that had been fighting could see specific advantages to cooperation. Admiral Victoria Bell arrived to sign the agreement on behalf of humanity. Her presence symbolized Earth's commitment to the new alliance and its willingness to take responsibility for galactic security. This treaty represents more than peace between current enemies, she declared. It represents evolution of galactic civilization toward something greater than any single species could achieve alone. A signing ceremony took place in the station's central chamber, where representatives from all three major factions gathered. Chancellor Vex Mora signed for the coalition, while Harmony Through Starfall extended. Crystalline appendages that bonded with the treaty documents at a molecular level. By this agreement, we bind ourselves to mutual defense and shared exploration. Admiral Bell announced as she added humanity's signature. The age of isolation ends today, and the age of cooperation begins. The Treaty of Three Realities was transmitted across the galaxy within hours. Most worlds celebrated the end of a war that had consumed 60 planets and millions of lives. Some extremist groups vowed to continue fighting, but they found little support. 10 years later, Captain Gary White commanded the ESV Voyager as it explored a parallel universe where the laws of physics operated according to completely different principles. His crew included humans, coalition species, and Starlight Seeker entities working together as a unified team. Captain, we're detecting signs of intelligent life in this dimension, reported Science Officer Lisa Bennett, a human enhanced with Starlight Seeker dimensional perception technology. A civilization appears to be in distress. Gary felt pride flow through the quantum consciousness network as human minds shared the satisfaction of their species' growth. The Alliance had not only survived, but flourished beyond anyone's expectations. Prepare first contact protocols, he ordered. Let's see if we can help them the way we learned to help each other. In the ship's ready room, an aged Jake Morrison served as ambassador to newly discovered civilizations. At 93, he had watched humanity evolve from isolated survivors to leaders of a galactic alliance that spanned multiple realities. Admiral White, he said with a smile, remember that we were silent for 500 years because we needed to learn how to listen. Now that we can hear the universe's pain, we finally know how to heal it. The Alliance fleet moved toward the distressed civilization with confidence born from decades of successful cooperation. Where once there had been silence, now there was a symphony of different species working together to build something greater than any of them could achieve alone. Humanity had returned to the galaxy not as conquerors or suppliants, but as partners in the great work of making existence better for all conscious beings. The long silence was finally over, and the sound of tomorrow was the music of unity across the stars.